Hey everybody, it's Mike, and welcome to Chip Damage. And today we're talking Sega Saturn. Now, when I was a kid in the mid-90s, I actually had a Sega Saturn, but I was definitely in the minority. The Sega Saturn was not very popular, as some as you know, especially with the PlayStation 4 just recently released and the N64 right around the corner. You may ask, Mike, why did you want a Sega Saturn as a kid? Well, I'll tell you. If you were like me and you had a Sega Genesis and you loved it, you thought the Sega Saturn was going to bring the sequels to some of your favorite games like Sonic the Hedgehog or Streets of Rage or Vector Man. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. Sega went in a very different direction with the Sega Saturn, but that's not to say it didn't have some excellent games. You just kind of had to go a little bit outside your comfort zone to find some of those games. Sega went with a weird direction with it, and they leaned in with that weirdness. But nonetheless, I ended up loving some of these games. However, a lot of people don't know about them. The Saturn sold under 10 million units in its lifetime. Compare that to the 100 million that the PlayStation 1 sold and the 32 million that the N64 sold. It just wasn't that popular, especially here in the United States. So today I wanted to talk about some of my beloved Saturn games, my weird ones, my good ones, my limited ones. And I must say, because the Saturn was such a flop, a lot of these games are automatically rare and expensive, but they're also not really found anywhere else. The Saturn had a lot of exclusives that to this day have not been re-released, and they're definitely worth checking out. It also had a lot of games that if there were ports on the PlayStation or the N64, the Saturn version had exclusive content. A lot of it which is not broadly spoken about today, and that's what we're going to be looking at now. So let's dive in. Let's start with a game that most people associate with the Sega Saturns, and this is a personal favorite of mine, Nights into Dreams. Yuji Naka, the founder of Sonic, and the rest of the guys over at Sonic Team went in a different direction after Sonic and Knuckles and decided to make a new mascot for the Saturn. That's Knights. This is a fun and weird game. The main character, Knights, is this jester-like character who has the ability to freely fly through levels. And there's only 7 levels. This is a quick game, but it has a very score attack and time attack feel to it. You're going to want to redo those levels, find little secrets, do it faster. And this game is brimming with heart, and that's something I love about it. You play as Claris and Elliot, 2 kids who go to bed feeling like losers at the end of the night. They had bad days, and Knights recruits them in their dreams to help him save the dream world and hence save the waking world. And by the time they wake up, they feel like winners, they have confidence, and they're able to achieve their goals the next day because of their adventures with Knights. It's able to tell all this story with a style and amount of heart without saying a single word. There's no spoken dialogue in this game, giving it the dreamlike quality, which is really appropriate. This version that you're seeing here is pretty hard to come by. This is the version that came with the 3D control pad, which you can see here. Kind of looks like a prototype to the Dreamcast controller, which was kind of a Dreamcast to the original Xbox controller. The whole idea behind this is that since Knights can fly around freely, this movable thumbstick would help move him around. But I must say, even if you just have a regular Saturn controller, using the D-pad is how I play this game. It's very easy. The joystick does add a little bit more precision, but there's absolutely no issue playing with the D-pad. This game was re-released on the Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network back in 2012 or 2013, I believe. With a few extra bells and whistles. So if you want to get this game, that's an excellent way to play it. And moving along to a very sought-after collectible to the Saturn, it's the Nights into Dreams Christmas Dream Sampler Disc. Now, this was released in Sega Saturn magazine, which you can imagine not many people picked up back in the day. And what it is, it's 2 levels of Nights into Dreams with a Christmas theme. The levels are covered in snow. There's Christmas trees everywhere. Knights is wearing red and has like Santa pom-poms on the end of his head. And depending on what holiday it is, not just Christmas, if it's New Year's or Halloween or April Fool's Day, little things in the game change, which is really nice. This was partially included in that prior mentioned Xbox Live PlayStation Network release of Knights, but a lot of the features were actually cut. There is a playable Sonic the Hedgehog in this game, which is really weird since Knights can fly and Sonic cannot. He kind of just runs around and jumps really high, and you kind of have to compensate. That was cut from the PlayStation and Xbox release of this game. So if you can get your hands on this, if you own a Saturn or if you're a collector of just good games, this is something you want to get your hands on, but it is starting to get a little pricey. There is a Japanese version that's a little easier to come by, but for US owners, it only comes in this sleeve. Like I said, it was a pack-in for a magazine, but highly recommend. So moving on to a game that many people associate with the PS1, is the original Resident Evil. Yes, there was a Sega Saturn port of the game. Now, this game is very similar to the PlayStation release. It has a different look. It's a little brighter, and since the Saturn was not quite as good with 3D models as the PlayStation, it's a little jaggier, but I wouldn't say it's an uglier version. It just looks a little different. The characters are a little jaggier, but it doesn't look quite as plasticky as that original PlayStation version. So it's really a matter of preference and personal taste which one you actually think looks better. However, this does have an exclusive feature that the PlayStation 1 version does not, and that is the precursor to the famous and beloved Mercenaries mode, often found in other Resident Evil games, which is a type of horde mode, if you don't know, where you kind of just fight endless enemies. In this game, it was called Battle Mode, and the idea is you basically fight room to room fighting enemies. There are exclusive enemies in those rooms that you fight through, such as a Albert Wesker zombie and a Golden Tyrant. In the main campaign of the game, if you will, the main portion of the game, there's actually an exclusive enemy called a Tick, which is a remodeled, reskinned hunter enemy, not found anywhere else in the Resident Evil universe. So if you're a hardcore Resident Evil fan or a Capcom fan and own a Saturn, you want to pick this one up. It is pretty collectible. Resident Evil is very popular, as most of you know, so it can cost you a pretty penny, but there are features on here not found anywhere else, especially if you want to see that Wesker zombie. So sticking with Capcom is a legendary game that is X-Men Children of the Atom. So if you don't know, this was originally released in arcades back in 1994 and is the true start of the ultra-beloved Marvel vs. Capcom series. Those sprites of Wolverine, Cyclops, Magneto, etc., super jumping and doing giant combos, flying through the air, that all started right here with this game. Now, there are multiple versions of it, and the Sega Saturn version came out a year after the arcade version, and in its default form, it isn't exactly arcade perfect. A lot of frames of animation had to be cut, but it is far better than the later released PlayStation 1 version. The Saturn was a 2D powerhouse. If you also want to import a expansion pack to the Sega Saturn, it was kind of like how can I compare it to the Rumble Pack on the N64 that kind of juiced up the Saturn's power. You can actually get this game to look even better, but that can set you back quite a bit of money because that is a very collectible item, especially in fighting game community circles. So if you decide to pick this one up and you just get the American version, just as I have here, with no expansion, it's still a fine version. Lots of fun to play, much better than the PlayStation version, comes highly recommended. So, sticking with fighters, we are going to look at Fighters Megamix by Sega themselves, their AM2 department. This is a Saturn exclusive. This combines all the characters from Virtua Fighter 2 and Fighting Vipers, which is one of Sega's lesser-known fighting franchises, into one big fighting game in a 3D Tekken-esque style, Virtua-esque style fighting game. This has some weird unlockable characters. AM2 also made Daytona USA in arcades on Sega Saturn. The car is an unlockable fighter. Yes, you actually fight as a car that becomes sentient, fights on its back wheels, and punches and kicks its enemies. You can also fight as the logo of the company AM2, which is a palm tree. I believe you just need to play a mere 84 or 87 hours in-game to unlock that playable palm tree, and he'll join the roster. As well as Bark the Polar Bear and Bean the Dynamite Duck from the legendary Sonic the Fighters are also unlockable in this game. So this is just a fun, wacky, nearly Smash Brothers in concept fighting game found only on the Sega Saturn. It's fairly valuable, but it's still under $100, which is pretty cheap for the Saturn. So if you're looking for a fighting game that you're not going to get anywhere else, Fighters Megamix is the way to go. So check it out. All right. In the vein of fighters, but not quite a fighter, we're going to look at Super Puzzle Fighter 2, which is, in my opinion, the greatest puzzle/fighting game combination. I mean, how many of them are there? Of all time. And this is also known as a PlayStation release, but it was released on the Sega Saturn, and the sprites are a little sharper. This was also re-released on the Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network a few years ago. However, that version is different than the Saturn and PlayStation version. The re-released HD version cut a lot of content, such as dance tutorial mode, Ryu's stage, his background stage was changed. What else? Many of the fighting winning quotes, as in when you win a match, the quote your character will say, were excluded from the game. So yeah, it wasn't exactly complete. One of the key things that I miss is that when you're doing well or poor in this game, the music speeds up to adds intensity. That was removed from the HD version. So if you want to play the best version of this game, I would say get the PlayStation or especially the Sega Saturn version because, like I said, it looks a little sharper than the PS1 version. However, it is at the disadvantage of being a very expensive game. This could cost upwards of near $200 US, but if you are a Capcom collector or if you love this game or a Saturn collector, this is a nice one to have in your collection if you can find it. So, Puzzle Fighters, go for it. Sticking with Capcom, we are going with the legendary, infamous Street Fighter the Movie video game, or Street Fighter the Movie the game as it's known. This was actually the first Street Fighter game I ever owned. I had played Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo as a kid, and when I saw that they were making a movie and a game, I'm like, oh, I need that. This is going to be great. Many of you know that's not exactly how it turned out. This game is infamous for being kind of cruddy. However, it is unique. It is funny. It is also dirt cheap. So if you could just pick this up and you want a few laughs for your Sega Saturn, it definitely is not going to get a re-release. So pick it up and have some fun playing as Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile and Kylie Minogue as Cammy and the legendary Raul Julia as Bison. I mean, in what other games can you play as a cast like that? So if you have a few extra bucks and a Saturn laying around, go for it. Why not? Have a few laughs. All right, sticking with the weird category, we are going with Mr. Bones, a Sega Saturn exclusive. Trying to describe this game quickly is kind of an exercise in futility, but let's go for it. You play as a resurrected jazz musician who's trying to save the world from other evil skeletons that were resurrected by a warlock. And you do this in a variety of ways. Some of the levels are puzzle platformers. Some of them are rhythm games. There's like a breakout Arkanoid style game. It changes level to level. And I think they had a ton of fun with this one. It's bizarre. There's nothing else like it. One of my favorite things about it is you don't have a traditional health system. Since you are a skeleton, as you take damage, you lose bones. And when you are near death or re-death, you are just a skull bouncing around. So this is not going to get a re-release. This isn't going to be found anywhere else. It's not too expensive, still under $100. If you have a Saturn and you want a wild time, Mr. Bones is the way to go. All right. So, like I said, there were not very many Sonic the Hedgehog releases on the Sega Saturn. No brand new games, but there were some interesting ports, and that's what we're going to look at here. We're going to start with the off-maligned Sonic 3D Blast. I like this game. It's grown on me. It's not really like any other Sonic game. It comes in a top-down isometric view, and the objective of this game is to run around killing the few robots on the stage to get the little bird flickies inside. The Saturn version differs from the Genesis version. It looks a little cleaner. It strangely lacks the opening cutscene of the Genesis version, so you have to read the manual if you want to know what's going on in the story. But it did change one major thing, and that's the special stages. The special stages in the Genesis version, which is the version that is most released in compilations and Sonic collections in years prior. In the Genesis version, those bonus levels were kind of Sonic running along like a falling path in the similar isometric view. The Saturn version has totally different special levels. They are more akin to the Sonic 2 running through a tube bonus levels, if you're familiar with them, but they are in 3D. They have the polygonal Sonic from the Saturn era, and I enjoy them more. And it is an exclusive to the Saturn. That version with those special stages is not released anywhere else, so if you want to play them, if you want the complete Sonic 3D Blast experience, got to go with the Saturn. Oh, and speaking of maligned Sonic titles, we're talking Sonic R. I don't want to hear any complaints about this game. I love it. It's wacky. Yeah, this is a foot racing game with 5 stages. Yeah, 5 stages. But I love every one of those 5 stages. The soundtrack is the weirdest, corniest, but most heartfelt soundtrack you're going to get in a racing game, especially at this time. Full of lyrics, not really related to anything that's happening in the game, but I love it. You get to play as a cast of all of Sonic's main characters, as well as some exclusive characters like Mecha Knuckles and the loved Tails doll, which is kind of like a floating Robotnik-made Tails copy. Yeah, this game was re-released on the Nintendo GameCube as well as on PC years later, but there are some different graphical touches in the Saturn version, especially on the last level, which is very similar to Rainbow Road. Like certain parts of the stage will be transparent, and there are other little graphical touches that if you really look for, you'll see. So if you have a Saturn, you're a big Sonic fan, this is definitely one you want to have in your collection. This is highly sought after, so I guess it's not that hated after all. This can run you upwards of $200 and plus, especially as time goes on. This one's going to be harder to find. I'm really hoping for an HD re-release of this. Like I've said many times, if Sonic the Fighters can get an HD port with online multiplayer on the 360 and PS3, where's my Sonic R re-release? But you know what? I'm not going to hold my breath on it. I'm just going to hope for it. Sticking with Sonic, we are looking at Sonic Jam. Now, this is something I got with my Saturn. What this is Sonic Team compiled the first 4 Sonic games, Sonic 1, 2, and 3, and Sonic and Knuckles, onto one disc, added the lock-on technology with Sonic and Knuckles, where you could add the prior Sonic games to Sonic and Knuckles and change them and expand them, put them on one disc, and they were not ports, they were actually recreated versions, so they are fantastic. There's no slowdown, and there are alternate modes to play this game in. You can play it in an easy mode that cuts some stages and adds some platforms to make it easier for newcomers. The normal mode, which is still slightly easier version, changes some things, changes some graphical effects. Or if you want to play the original Genesis version, that's also an option. It also has a infamous, or should I say famous, 3D museum in the game called Sonic World, where you run around a small area, think Mario 64's castle area, as Sonic, and you can go into a museum of Sonic music where you can listen to soundtracks and sound effects throughout the Sonic series up to the point. You can watch little movies like previews for the then upcoming Sonic anime, the OVA, or the opening to Sonic CD. That's how I was first introduced to Sonic CD. And there's also little bonus challenges where you can run around the stage and collect rings. And it's really, you can see the DNA which led to the later 3D Sonic game, Sonic Adventure, kind of being demoed in that Sonic world. I love this game. I love the Sonic games. This is one of the best ways to play them. This is incredibly rare at this point. This goes for over $200, but I really do think it's an essential part of any series Sega Saturn's collection. If you can afford it, I mean, you can get these games many other ways, but this package is truly something special. So if you hunt this down, you pick it up, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Sonic Jam, legendary game. All right. So, besides Knights, Sega tried to make another mascot for the Saturn, and I wouldn't say it was exactly successful, but hey, they gave it a try. They released Bug, which was another animal with attitude mascot, perhaps trying to answer not just Sonic, but Crash Bandicoot. This is I dare have trouble saying 2.5D platformer. It's 2D. But there are parts where you actually kind of go deep into the stage, like you turn inwards toward the stage. I wouldn't call it 3D. It's more of like 2D with tricks. It's not bad, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get it if you're looking for an excellent platformer. But it is unique. There is a fun part where you actually race a 2D model of Sonic as Bug. They were really trying to, like I say, maybe make Bug compete with the popularity of Sonic. And since this is probably the first time many of you have heard of Bug, you can tell they weren't exactly successful. But hey, it's an oddity. It's not expensive. You can get this for under $50, and you're not going to get an HD release of this one. You can only find it on Saturn. Sticking with that is the slightly better Bug 2, T-O-O. You can tell, you know, with all that attitude, they don't even have time to spell things correctly. Similar to the first one, a little bit better. It doesn't have that Sonic race, a little bit more expensive, but they did some work on it. And this is actually a pretty fun 2.5D platformer. Check it out if you have any fun with the first one. It is worth picking up the second one. Slightly better game. All right. So we're going to take a look. We're switching gears to an arena fighter, if you want to call it that. Virtualon Cyber Troopers. This is imagine Gundam in an arena. That is what you're going to get. You pick your robot. You fight in large areas in a 3D battle, running back and forth, jumping around, shooting, slashing with your laser sword. This is a lot of fun. This actually would spawn a sequel on the Dreamcast. And later would be that sequel would later be re-released on the Xbox 360. This is fun and it's pretty unique. It looks great on the Saturn. This is one of those like kind of weird things that you can only find on the Sega Saturn. Like I said, they were willing to experiment, and I'd say this was a successful one. If you're in a mood for some fun multiplayer robot action, Virtualon is a good option. All right, and now we're coming near to the end of the video, and I want to talk about some exclusives to the Sega Saturn that are famous but a little hard to come by. So let's jump with that. The Pandra Dragoon series. So we're going to start with Pandra Dragoon 1, the first release. This was a very early Sega Saturn title. I want you to imagine Star Fox, but with dragons. That's what this is. It is a rail shooter. Main difference from Star Fox is that you can actually turn left, right, and behind you while continuing to move forward kind of on autopilot. And you fight other dragons and monsters. The game has a story with a language that was created exclusively for this game. So every version has subtitles. This was re-released fairly recently on the on the Nintendo Switch and on the PlayStation 4. However, that version is somewhat controversial. They changed the visuals, and some don't find them quite as appealing as the polygonal look on the Sega Saturn. So if you want the original version, this is the way to go. Not super expensive as compared to the following games we're about to talk about. Worth picking up. It is not easy. There are only 6 levels in this game, but you will have trouble beating them. So if you do pick it up, you're going to have a fun time. And sticking with Pandra Dragoon, we're looking at Pandra Dragoon 2 Zwei, or 2 in German. This is also a rail shooter, but it's a bit more refined, or I dare say a lot more refined than its predecessor. There are ground missions in this game where your mount will ride along the ground. It looks sharper. The polygonal look has been smoothed out a bit. It continues the story of the first, but it's generally seen as a better game. I'm hoping that Sega will also re-release this on modern home consoles, whether that be the PS4, PS5, Switch, or Xbox One. Despite that last version being controversial, I think they did a good job, and I hope they continue with the series and bring out Pandra Dragoon 2 Zwei. This is a bit more expensive than its predecessor, nearing the $100 range at the time of this recording. But still, as of now, a Saturn exclusive, a good game, something you should check out. And my last game, I've talked about this game on a few videos. This is a famous game for the Saturn. It is the third Pandra Dragoon game on the Sega Saturn, and the final one released on that console. That's Pandra Dragoon Saga. Now, this is called Saga and not 3 because though it takes place in the same world as the first Pandra Dragoon games, it is not a rail shooter. It is an RPG, a full RPG. This game was produced as an answer to Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation. It released a year later at the tail end of the Saturn's lifespan. And I've heard reports that only 10,000 up to 50,000 units of this game were made. And it doesn't help that the game is excellent. So this is most likely one of, if not the most expensive games to buy on the Sega Saturn. This is highly sought after. This is kind of a gem in most people's collections. It's a gem in my collection, kind of the crown jewel. At the time I bought this, it was $300. That was 8-9 years ago. Now it's breaking $1,000. I don't know if any game's worth that value, but if you do get it, if you have that type of disposable income, you will enjoy this game. This game, brimming with heart, unique art style that really kind of incorporates that dragon riding style. It is a 4-disc game. They did not cheap out on this game. It had an infamous development that you can see in other videos. You can hear the story about that in other videos of 2 of the developers dying while working on this game, kind of adding a sense of mystique to it. But yeah, this has not been re-released. Hopefully it will be like Pandra Dragoon 1, but like many games from that era when re-release is brought up, the developers said that the source code or the development notes were lost or deleted during the time. I guess they just worked on a game for a few years, put them on floppy disks, all the development on floppy disks, and lost them. So I wouldn't hold my breath for this one being re-released, but I surely hope it is, because it is excellent. and I really don't want everyone to pay $1,000 to play it. So yeah, Pandra Dragoon Saga, crown jewel in my collection, and only found on the Saturn for the time being. And that's it. So yeah, the Sega Saturn, as you can see, had a bunch of weird and fun games. Unfortunately, a lot of them are rare and expensive. But if you're looking to get into Saturn collecting, you can find some really eclectic gems that aren't found anywhere else. And yeah, you're going to be satisfied if you continue to collect for it and build that library. So that's what I have to say on the Sega Saturn. Thank you for listening to me ramble about these games for the last few minutes. We're going to be looking at other systems going forward. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye, everybody.